Hey everyone, welcome back to the Crafty Couple. This is one of our most popular videos, but we did have to take it down a few years ago due to some copyright issues with the music. So we did make some changes, but unfortunately we lost some of the audio along the way. So it's not perfect, but we still wanted everyone to enjoy it. So with that being said, let's jump in and get started.
So to make each panel of the windmill, I'm measuring every 4.5 inches on the top of this foam board, and that's how long the top will be. And then the actual length of all of them is 10 inches. And in the end, we'll want 8 panels total. Now just connect your line at 4.5 inches down to your line at 3.5 inches on all of them. After I did all this, I realized it would have been a lot easier just to make one template and then trace it and make 8. If you were to make this, I would definitely make one however big you wanted it and then just trace that. And then for the center, just trace anything that is circular. And now it's time to cut all your pieces out. After all of the panels are cut, we're going to be using truffle, hazelnut, mineral, all from Waverly chalk paint. And right here I'm just starting out with mineral and painting all of them. Then I'm going in with hazelnut with a sponge just to make it a little bit more distressed. And then finally some truffle just on the very edges. And then that piece that we had that came with the wreath form, that is going to go in the middle. So go ahead and distress that as well. And then glue that metal piece right onto the circle. To connect everything together, I'm using these extra long skewers that I got from Dollar Tree. You can see before that I did mess up and use smaller skewers. I didn't like how it turned out, so I would definitely recommend using these longer ones. Right here, I'm just measuring how long they are. They're 36 inches long, so just cut those in half. And then I'm just going in with watered down truffle paint to give it more of a stained look. So you can see here where I used the smaller skewer, which I definitely would not recommend. So I'm going to hot glue this other skewer, try to get it into the middle as much as possible. And you're going to line up the very end of the skewer to the top. Right here, I'm just measuring out the middle of the circle so that we can draw 4 lines so we have a template so that we know where to put the skewers. Now put hot glue on all of those lines and hot glue the skewers onto the circle. Once that is done, it's time to add the circle wreath form that we had at the very beginning and add that to the back. Try and get it as center as possible. I measured it out, it's 14 inches, so make sure that 7 inches is in the middle. And then once that is centered, just go ahead and hot glue onto all the skewers. When I flipped it over, it was looking a little bit too plain for me, so I added a little bit more distressing with white chalk paint. Next, we're moving on to these push pins. You'll need 16 of them, and I'm going to distress them using black paint, some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color truffle, and then also the Waverly chalk paint in hazelnut. And then just add 2 to each panel right where the circle is.
For our next project, we're going to use some foam board from Dollar Tree, and we're going to cut it so the height is 5 inches and the length is 12 inches. I'm going to start by measuring up 5 inches, and I'm going to make a few marks on the foam board, that way I can make a straight line. And this is just a metal ruler that we also got from Dollar Tree. Now that I have the marks for the height, I'm going to go ahead and measure out 12 inches and do the same thing, just make a few marks at the 12-inch mark. And then I will go back and line up the ruler and draw a straight line at 12 inches and at 5 inches. Once we have the rectangle marked out, I found it's easiest to cut the foam board with a razor blade. Now that we have that cut out, we can use it as a template. So place that on top of the foam board and then just trace it out and cut it with the razor blade. For the two ends of the box, what we're going to do is create a 5-inch by 5-inch square. So right here I'm just measuring out 5 inches and up 5 inches, and then we'll cut that out to go on the end of the box. Once those are cut out, you should have two 5-inch by 12-inch rectangles and two 5-inch by 5-inch squares, and that is what we'll make our planter out of. For the shiplap effect, I just drew a line at each inch mark in between the 5 inches, and I felt that was a pretty good spacing and give it a really good look. Once you've marked it off, go ahead and line up your ruler on all of those marks and draw a straight line. Once you have all of your lines drawn, you can go back now with a Sharpie and just do another straight line over the pencil. For the distressing on this planter, I'm using Waverly chalk paint in mineral and ink, and I'm just going to get a little bit of each of those on the brush and make sure that you have most of that paint off. We're using a dry brush technique on this. I didn't want to give it a lot of distressing, just a little bit. That's why you want to make sure that most of that paint is off of the brush. I forgot to show you the bottom piece that I cut. That's actually going to be 5.5 inches by 12 inches. It needs to be a little bit wider to accommodate the foam board that we're gluing on here. So what we want to do is start with one side and just glue it onto the top of that bottom piece and then work our way all the way around. Now we're going to create the metal end caps that go on each corner of our planter. We're using some poster board from Dollar Tree, and we decided to make them 2 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall. And what we're going to do is measure these out on the poster board and cut them out and then paint them to give them that metal look. Once we have all of those cut out, the next part, we want to go ahead and fold each of those in half the long way. To give it that metal look, we're going to start by using this brilliant silver Krylon spray paint. Once those have dried, we're going to go in and use some ink Waverly chalk paint to distress it. Again, I like to dry brush and then also use a wet and dry paper towel to give it an aged look. I'm also dabbing the brush on there as well as using brush strokes. We're going to go in and dry brush these thumbtacks as well. You're going to need 24 total, but we want a little bit more paint on than what we do the end caps. We want them almost black, but a little bit of that silver poking through. Now that all of our distressing is complete, we can go in and glue all of these poster board end caps on the planter. To finish up this planter, the last part is to put all of these thumbtacks in. We decided to do 3 on each side. Now that that's complete, we can go ahead and put our greenery in. We're just using this floral foam from Dollar Tree, and please be careful, the thumbtacks are sticking through. The greenery we're using today is from Walmart. I think it looks a lot better than what you would get at Dollar Tree.
Time to make some farmhouse pillows. I will be using 2 bath mats from the dollar store and just hot gluing all the edges together. The stuffing I use is just from an old pillow, but you can get stuffing for them from Joann's or Michael's or any place like that. Now it's time just to hot glue it all together. For the last pillow, I just used a Waverly fat quarter that I got from Walmart, and this was only $1. I folded it in half and just hot glued all the edges. For the last side, you want to cut it how big you want your pillow, and then again I just hot glued the corners and left a little gap so I can put the stuffing in. When you're done hot gluing it together, just turn it back right side out so that you can put the stencil on top. This stencil is just from Joann's, and I also got that 50% off. Finish it up, just hot glue at the very end. You're going to need 4 of the 12-inch dowels from Dollar Tree, and you will need 8 of the 6-inch dowels. I started by measuring how wide I wanted it, and mine ended up being around 5 5/8 inch, and you'll cut 4 of those all the same size. To cut them was really easy, just use some wire cutters and go all the way around until it snaps. If yours doesn't end up exactly this size, don't worry about it. You can really do this basket pretty much any size that you want. Now I'm measuring how tall I want the basket, and mine ended up being 5 3/4 inch. And then cut 4 of the 6-inch dowels to that size. You'll want to sand the edges just a little bit on all of the cut pieces. To assemble the frame, we're going to grab the dowels that we cut first, and we are going to glue them to the 2 12-inch dowels. Then do the same exact thing for the other set of dowels. Once those have dried, we're going to grab the second set of dowels that we cut, and we're going to put them straight up and hold it until it dries just a little bit with the hot glue. I would not recommend using A6000 for this project just because it does take a very long time to dry. Then just hot glue the top on. For the chicken wire look, you will need 2 trash bins from Dollar Tree and cut the whole top and the bottom off. Once that is done, there will be a thicker seam that you will cut all the way up. The bottom will not be as stretched out, so grab the sides and stretch this out just as much as you can. For the bottom, you will grab 2 more of the 12-inch dowels and you will put them on the bottom and just mark where that end is, cut it off and hot glue it so that we have a base. Lay the frame onto the chicken wire and just cut all the way around it for one of the sides. Now put the trash bin on one of the sides. To secure this to the frame, we are going to be using hot glue, so you'll put little dots of hot glue where the wire touches the frame. When that is dry, take your wire cutters and cut all the little pieces sticking out. For the other side, you will do the exact same thing. If you are ever wondering about measurements or tools that we use, in the description box we do have a list of all of that available. With the 2 sides complete, it's time to work on the ends. Once again, just lay it on top of the trash bin and cut around it. This time I used the first piece as a template for the second one. The easiest way to get this on the side without sticking was to fold the ends in just a little bit. Adjust the wire to fit around all of the corners and then hot glue it on just like the rest. For both of the handles, I used floral wire from Dollar Tree. Once again, I just kind of eyeballed it to how I wanted it. Make hooks on the top so that it can go over the side of the frame. To add just a little bit more style to this, I'm grabbing some of the floral wire again, and then I'm going to be wrapping it around a pencil. Once you take it off the pencil, squish it all together and then pull it back out to make it a little bit more even. And then you will want to adjust it just to the size of your handle. To put it on, just straighten one of the edges and slide it on. To attach it to the basket, open up the hooks on the top just a little bit, put it on top, and then just clamp them down. To paint the whole entire thing, I used spray paint from Rust-Oleum in the color Antique Pewter. This is it after spray painting. To age the basket, I'm going to be using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle to give it a rust look. And then I went in with the Waverly chalk paint in the color Ink as well. With the 3 glass jars that I got from Dollar Tree, I covered them in burlap that I got from Walmart. I got this whole thing of burlap for only $1.75 at Walmart. You'll want to check the section where they have kind of the extra pieces, and you can get a lot of fabric for really cheap. To attach the burlap to the containers, I just hot glued a line on top of the glass and then rolled that over to the start of the burlap. Then roll the jar up in the burlap and hot glue the same spot that we did before and attach the end. With whatever is left over, just go ahead and cut that off. For the bottom, just cut a little bit of the fabric so that there is some left so that we can hot glue it. Then just fold it over on top of itself so that the whole bottom is covered. The lavender that I put inside is from Walmart and it was only 97 cents. There is lavender from Dollar Tree, but I just like how this one looks a lot better and it's the same price.
Going to use this planter from Dollar Tree and go ahead and put a couple coats of this white Waverly chalk paint on it. After our 2 coats have dried, we can move on to distressing. I'm going to go ahead and use this mineral chalk paint from Waverly, And we're gonna start with dry brushing it on, and if you guys do make any mistakes or it goes on a little bit heavy, don't worry, you can always go back with some of that white paint to cover it up. Next we can move on with putting the twine around the bottom. I would pick whichever side you think looks best and then start on the opposite side. We want to start on the back here to try and hide the seams, and then we're going to start right where that lip is and then glue all the way around and cover that little bottom section. To finish this project, we just need to place our greenery. This first greenery is from Dollar Tree and this is from IKEA. We ended up using the IKEA greenery since it was left over from another project. It didn't cost us anything more. It is a little bit more expensive though, so if you're wanting to go to like Walmart or Dollar Tree, you can definitely get something more around $1.
For the next project, you're going to need a foam board just from the dollar store, and I measured out every 5 inches just because that's how big I wanted the shiplap. For this first project, we'll grab these wood planks from Dollar Tree. They are a newer item that I have noticed, and they are at the Crafter Square Dollar Trees. They come in a pack of 6. We will only be using 5 of them today, so 4 of them will be the sides, and then the 5th one we will be cutting in half. Just measure out the middle of one of the planks, make a line, and that's where we're going to cut. What we use to cut all of our wood is this Black & Decker jigsaw. We have really enjoyed it, and it's very affordable. And there's a link in the description for that below. After you've cut, you will just need to sand the edges. When all that is complete, we're going to start assembling the box. So you'll take one of the smaller sides and put it onto one of the front pieces. Now you will just hot glue the 2 front pieces together. To give it some extra support, I grabbed these popsicle sticks from Dollar Tree and I just put some hot glue on there, and I'm putting it on the inside of the front part. Then just add the other end. Then you will do the same thing for the other side. So glue the 2 ends together and then put the 2 popsicle sticks on top. And then you will just hot glue that part onto the rest of the box. For the base, you could definitely use more of those wood planks, but I decided just to use some foam board. So go ahead and line up the foam board with your box and just trace it out. To stain everything, I used this dark walnut stain by Minwax. I would love to hear in the comments below some of your favorite stains that you use. To make the handles, I'm using one of these 12-inch dowels from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to measure at 3 and at 6 inches, and that will be the actual handle part. And then you will want to cut 4 smaller pieces just to put on the end of the handle so that it sticks out from the box. The pieces don't matter too much in length, just make sure that they are all the same size and that you sand them down. And then we will just hot glue them on. I decided to spray paint it with the Krylon Fusion Gloss Black spray paint. While those are drying, we're going to go ahead and put the base into the box. So put hot glue all the way around and then just slide it into the base. This is what the handles look like after the spray paint, and I really liked how they turned out. You can do these more of a metal color, kind of whatever you feel like. And then just hot glue those on as well. I wanted the front to have a little bit more design to it, so I'm putting, it's going to say number 1 on the front. This stencil is from Dollar Tree, and I'll be painting all of it with the Waverly chalk paint and the color ink. If you are to do this, I would choose just a different number. In the end, it ended up saying no 1 instead of number 1, and that kind of bugged me, so I would choose just any other number. To get the number portion, I will be putting the N from 1 and the O also from 1 on there. And then I just used the eye from 9 for the little dot. Then I used just a different stencil that I had on hand to write box, going vertically. Since this is more of a farmhouse design, I went over the top just with some sandpaper to make it look more worn. To fill the box, I'm using these peonies that I got from Amazon, and there's a link in the description below for these. A few people have mentioned that we should show how we put the flowers inside. Let me know in the comments if you like us showing how we arrange things or not. Also, if you're ever wondering on all the products that we used, just check out the description below. And this is what the finished product looked like.
For this one, we're going to use this little storage container and use the antique pewter spray paint to give it that nice old metal look. We're going to use 5 of these little bottles from Dollar Tree. Go ahead and remove the caps, we won't need those. And then we're going to apply a couple coats of this chalk paint. We use the white Waverly chalk paint. Once the spray paint has dried, we can go in and start distressing. I like to use a combination of black and brown. And of course, we're going to go in here and do some dry brushing, and then also use a wet and dry paper towel to remove some of this and give it a really good distressed look. Now that the bottles are done, we can go in and do the same thing. Just use some of that black and brown combination and lightly dry brush on the bottles. Next, we're going to add some handles with this nautical rope from Dollar Tree. I didn't measure it, I just eyeballed it and made sure they were both the same size. And then I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue on the side and underneath that lip, and then gluing on the handle. We just found these flowers at Walmart the other day. It's this whole bundle for only $3. I think that they're really, really pretty. And then also this lamb's ear from Walmart for only $2. You can always use Dollar Tree flowers. We really enjoy the Walmart ones though. We feel like it gives it a much higher end look than the Dollar Tree one. We used a whole bouquet of flowers, and we ended up putting 3 flowers in each bottle. And then we used about half of the lamb's ear to put in each bottle. I found it was easiest to put the lamb's ear in first and then put the flowers in, so you can kind of arrange it how you'd like. And to finish this project, the last thing we need to do is just place the bottles with the flowers inside the little crate.
For this first project, you will need 2 8x10 canvases, and a way that I have found that is even easier than pulling out all the staples is to grab one of these knives and cut along all the canvas, and then you can just rip it off the very front. It's okay to leave all the staples in on this project, and then I grabbed one of these puzzles from Dollar Tree, and we would just be using the wood on the back for this project, and that will be the base of our tray. What I did was just take one of the canvases and trace it out so I knew where to cut. I would recommend cutting this with a handsaw. In a second, I do show you that I use a jigsaw to cut it, but for this puzzle, for whatever reason, it started splintering and kind of throwing pieces up, and I just don't want any accidents to happen, so please use a handsaw or something else. Once that was cut, I grabbed one of these 5-gallon stir sticks, and we get ours from Walmart, and they work really well for a ton of different projects. I just measured about how tall I wanted it, and it is 9 inches, so you will need 2 stir sticks for this project. And this was totally safe to cut with the jigsaw, there was no issues with that. Now for the handle that goes across, this is just a wooden dowel from Walmart. Dollar Tree does have wooden dowels, but they aren't very thick, and I felt like it balanced just a little bit better with one of these. You can use the Dollar Tree ones though, no problem. And I cut it about 10 inches so that it can go all the way across. And just like every other piece that we cut, you will just want to sand it down slightly. I will be using the Minwax Dark Walnut stain to stain all of it. Once the stain has dried, we will start assembling it all together. So you will grab the first canvas and flip it over, and then glue that puzzle piece on top. In the end, I did use 3 canvases. The tray, when I added everything together, it didn't look very balanced. The top was just too much. So I added a 3rd canvas, and it helped just balance everything a lot better. Then I just found the middle, which is 4 inches on these canvases, and I made a little mark so that I can put the stir sticks right in the center. And then I just put hot glue right on that line and put the stir stick on top. Just like we've mentioned in other videos, we use hot glue for time purposes. We both would recommend using something stronger like E6000. To finish off the tray, I just added the handle, and I did add it when I added the 3rd canvas back on. I did put the handle slightly higher. And just like I mentioned earlier, the 3rd canvas really just helps it look a lot more balanced. Project, we'll be using this over the door hanger and spraying it with the charcoal Rust-Oleum chalk paint. If you use a spray paint, I would recommend going in with a matte sealer afterwards just so that it doesn't chip at all. And then I'm going over with the pliers over the hooks and just bending them off. For the numbers on the front, we'll be using these cute chalkboard wood stakes. They come with the stake part attached, so just pull that off because all we'll need is the rectangle part. Then we're going in with the stain once again and going around all the edges. Add a little bit of hot glue to the top and bottom and place the rectangle on. I numbered mine using this chalk marker from Amazon, and I have a link for that in the description below. I will be using these craft sticks from Dollar Tree. Just lay them out in a diamond pattern, and you can make as many diamonds as you want. It's just about how long that you want it. Once they were all laid out, I just separated the tops from the bottom. One of them will be a template one, so we will just hot glue that together, and then I'm going to be using that one to make sure all the rest of them are the same size. With all of those hot glued together, just line them up how we had them before, because we're going to start hot gluing them together. So when I was putting this together, I did spend quite a bit of time making sure they all kind of go the same way or like a certain pattern. It really doesn't matter in the end, because we will be putting tiny cubes over the top where they all connect, so you won't even see that anyways. When you're making any of our projects, we use hot glue just for time purposes. We both would recommend using a stronger glue like E6000 for any of our projects. Also, if you are ever wondering what products we use, there will be a list in the description below. This is what it should look like after all 4 pieces are put together, and I will be using these wood craft cubes from Dollar Tree just so that you can hang stuff on top of this. I placed the craft cubes just everywhere that the craft sticks met. And then I just hot glued them all onto those spaces. When you glue them on, just make sure that they are straight and not turned sideways. This is what it looks like finished. You can leave it this natural color, or I am going to go ahead and stain it with this dark walnut stain. Let me know in the comments below if you prefer it just the natural wood or stained. Now that this is finished, we just put nails under the top triangle areas, and you can hang jewelry or plants or anything you like. For this project, you will need 4 of these square picture frames from Dollar Tree. Take everything out of the frame so that we can spray paint the frame. To paint it, I will be using the Krylon Fusion All-in-One Gloss Black Spray Paint. While those are drying, it's time to cut out your poster board. So grab your poster board and just one of the backings from the frames and trace 4 of them. When you're tracing these, make 1 more so that you can have a template. Then go ahead and just cut them out. Now I will be making the template that I talked about previously, so I just took this ruler and I'm going to be measuring it at 3 inches and at 6 inches and do that all the way around. Once you do that, just line up the ruler and make your lines. That will make a small square in the middle that you can go and cut out. When you're done cutting that out, now you have a template that you can go and draw a square in the middle of each page, and then use the same method, just cut it out so all of them are the same. With all of your poster board cut, just grab your favorite pictures and tape them on the inside. And then just assemble your frames all back together. For this craft, we're going to make this really cute tobacco basket. And this idea is from I Can Make That on Instagram, and I will link her Instagram below. She decided to take apart a whole entire basket from Dollar Tree, and I thought it was absolutely adorable and needed to recreate it. So like I said, her Instagram will be down in the description. The first thing that I did was grab some wire cutters and take off just the top part so that I can get the handle off, and then you're going to go in with the same wire cutters and do the twine that wraps around there so that you can take off the green part on the basket. Then you will need to go in with the same wire cutters and take off the very top layer because that is glued on. After that top layer, they do come off very easy after that. Once I got all the layers off, for the bottom you will just need to cut that twine kind of stuff again, and then just pull it apart the best you can very carefully because they do break pretty easy. Once you've taken it completely apart, there will be longer pieces, smaller staple looking pieces, and then the green. The longer pieces you will tape down. And then the smaller staple looking pieces you will flatten out and weave in between the longer pieces. After I weaved the whole thing, I took all the tape off so that I could adjust all the weaves so that they were a lot more clean and even. When you're adjusting it, just make sure that you do have enough room on all the sides so that it can connect to the top of the basket. After I adjusted everything, I taped it back down, and then you'll grab the green parts that are a little more sturdy, and that is going to be the whole shape of the top of the basket. I sanded the outsides of them down quite a bit so that there wasn't so much green. We are going to be painting over it though. After I sanded mine, they still had quite a bit of green, but it was okay since the insides will be covering anyways. Sort of bend it in the shape that you want, and then we will be gluing both of the sides together. I did take apart 2 baskets for this project so that I had more pieces to work with. So with 2 of the longer pieces, you're going to make an X on the front. I did hot glue them down in the corners, but I would probably just clamp it or use a paper clip to hold it in place, because in the end, I did need to move them a little bit to make it look better with the basket. Now it's time to actually glue the whole basket part to the frame of the top. It was a little tricky to get this basket started, but try and get the frame outside of all of the flaps on the basket, and then you're going to start in the middle and start hot gluing them to the side. So right here I have the whole one side done, and I'm just starting on the other side. I did start in the middle because I found that was easiest for me. I'm just taking the pieces, using some hot glue, and holding it there as long as I can to make sure it stays. Try and make sure the lengths are as even as possible as well. This is what it looks like with all of the sides glued down. To cover up where we glued all the pieces down, you're going to take the tan piece of the basket and glue it all around the front. Now take the wire cutters and cut all of the excess off the top. Instead of staining this basket, which you could do, I used the Truffle Waverly chalk paint and watered it down slightly to cover the whole entire thing. And I did go a little bit heavier on the edges where it was green to make sure it was covered. And this is what it looks like with one coat of the truffle paint watered down. And to finish it off, I added a small green wreath made out of lamb's ear.
For our next project, we're going to be creating a wood planter, and we're going to start by using these 6x8 canvas frames. Now, I did get some inspiration from a planter I saw, I believe it was on IKEA's website, and it was a lot bigger though. It was an outdoor one, so I thought it would be fun to recreate it and do it on a much smaller scale. Go ahead and remove the canvas from the frames. To start, we're going to use these craft sticks that come in a pack of 60, and what I'm doing is just cutting it right at the top where the curve starts to straighten out on the stick, and we're going to use 4 of these for each corner of the planter. After cutting the first one, you can go ahead and use that as a template and line it up with the other sticks and cut where needed. Now to cut them, all I'm using are a pair of regular scissors. These actually cut very easily, and these craft sticks are from Dollar Tree as well. I didn't really do any real hard measurements when creating this. I just cut at the top where it started to curve, and then when gluing these ones on, you just want to glue it on the very corner and then give it a little bit of room at the top. As you can see, it's not flush with the canvas frame, it does stick up just a little bit. Now we want to create the base for our planter. We can go ahead and use our other canvas frame and start gluing on the craft sticks. I ended up using 8 for the base. Some of them may hang over the edge a little bit. That's fine, you can go ahead and use a razor like this and cut them off. They will come off very easily. Now that our base is complete, we want to go ahead and glue it to the rest of our planter box. I ended up measuring 1.5 inches from the bottom and gluing there. For the rest of the wood sticks that go all the way around the planter, again, I didn't measure to any specific size. I just laid them out to where I thought they looked good on the box, and then from there I made my line to cut at the top, and then once I had my template, again, I just lined it up on the rest of the sticks and cut all the rest of them. For the longer sides of the planter, I ended up using 9 sticks, and then for the shorter side, I ended up using 7. For this end piece, you want to make sure that it's lined up on the very end with the other longer sticks. That way there's no gap. Once you've completed all 4 sides, we can move on to staining or painting. We ended up using this dark walnut stain and went around the whole thing. To finish our planter, we can go ahead and place our greenery or flowers. We ended up using these picks from Dollar Tree. I thought they looked really pretty. Very impressed with these actually. You can find similar ones at Walmart for just a little bit more. I ended up using 8 of these and loved how it turned out. For this project, you'll need 8 of these chalkboards from Dollar Tree and 11 5-gallon stir sticks from Walmart. 5 of them will cut at 18 1/4 inch and 6 of them will cut at 15 1/4 inch. We like to use this Black & Decker jigsaw, and we'll have a link for that in the description below, and also our go-to dark walnut stain. Go ahead and stain all of those stir sticks. We're going to get started with the longer stir stick, the 18 1/4 inch. Next, grab the 15 1/4 inch stir stick and line it up in the corner so that the top and the side of the stir sticks are all flush. When lining up the chalkboard, we want to slide it underneath the wood just a little bit. Since we have rounded corners on the chalkboard, if you were to put it exactly on the sides of the chalkboard, you'd actually have a little bit of gap on each corner. So we want to make sure that we're overlapping those stir sticks just a little bit on the chalkboard. Once we have our first 2 stir sticks glued down, we can flip it over and glue our first chalkboard in place. Once you've flipped it over, go ahead and line up your chalkboard, and then we can glue another 18 1/4 inch stir stick down. All of the 18 1/4 inch stir sticks are going to go vertical, up and down. You should have 5 of those, and then all of the 15 1/4s are going to go horizontal. You should have 6 of those. Right here you can see I'm just running a little line of hot glue along the edge there, and that's where we're going to glue our chalkboards down. Just a reminder guys, we use hot glue for time purposes. If you're looking for a stronger hold, we would definitely recommend using E6000 or wood glue, something that's going to give you a stronger hold and last longer. Once you've glued the chalkboard in, go ahead and flip it over and we can line up our second chalkboard. When gluing this piece down, make sure that you're overlapping the chalkboard just a little bit. Again, we want to make sure that we're not leaving those gaps on each corner. From here on out, the rest of the process is pretty simple. We're just repeating the first steps that we did. Go ahead and line up your chalkboard against the stir stick, and then we're going to glue just the very edges, the top and the bottom there. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one. Again, just make sure you're trying to avoid those gaps in each corner. For the middle part here, grab another long stir stick, the 18 1/4 inch measurement, and we're just going to flip it over and glue half of it down on the middle of the chalkboard. And then what you can do is flip it over, and we're going to glue the rest of the 15 1/4 inch stir sticks to it. As you can see, they're going to go right here on the top, the middle, and the bottom of the calendar. For the rest of the chalkboard, we're essentially just repeating the first steps that we took, aligning the chalkboard against the stir stick and then gluing the edges down. To give it some added support, I'm just gluing these popsicle sticks down. I'm gluing it from one chalkboard across the stir stick onto the next chalkboard. We got these little buckets from Dollar Tree. We're going to use that to hold like the chalk and a little towel for wiping off anything we write on the chalkboards. These hooks to connect them to the chalkboard, and this floral wire for the handle. Go ahead and remove the ribbon handle. You'll want to stick the floral wire in and see about how long you want the handle to be. Just stick it in one side of the bucket and wrap it around to the other and get an idea of how long you want that. For the paint, we used this Krylon Brilliant Silver spray paint and spray painted the bucket, the wires, and the hooks. If you guys are familiar with the channel, this is kind of how I like to distress a lot of the metal, and I'll use a ink paint from Waverly. It's just a black chalk paint, and I like to go in and dry brush it onto the silver and then also dab it to give it a little bit of a worn look, also kind of a galvanized look. I also go in with a wet paper towel and dry paper towel to kind of blend the colors and make it look a little bit more natural than just brush strokes. Let us know in the comments if you guys like this method, if you've tried it, how it's worked out for you, and what other methods you like to use for creating kind of a faux galvanized or aged metal look. After you've completed the buckets, go ahead and do the same thing with the wires and the hooks. After everything's painted, go ahead and stick it in one end of the bucket. You'll want to pinch it up so that it doesn't fall through. Wrap it around to the other side and do the same thing. After filming the bucket that we just did, we actually found this little tin one from Dollar Tree. Save you the hassle of making the handle, or you can buy one that's already a tin look from Walmart for 97 cents. For the hooks, you don't really need a pre-drill hole. You can if you'd like to, just to make it a little bit easier, but all I did was put a little bit of pressure on the wood and start twisting. It may take just a little bit of time, but you should be able to screw it right in without much effort. The last step here is to add this picture hanger. We're just using some hot glue. It works fine for what we're doing, but please use something stronger if you're worried about it holding up over time, maybe E6000 or even a little staple or nail.
For this sign, we will be using two 8x10 canvases. Pry up the staples using a flathead screwdriver and then grab some pliers to pull them out. I was originally going to make a bigger sign, but for this you will only need two canvases, and just mark right on one of the sides so that we can cut straight across. For all of our cutting, we use this Black & Decker jigsaw. There's a link in the description below for this. This is what it'll look like after you've cut off those pieces. You'll want to just sand them down slightly. It's time to flip them over now and hot glue the two ends together. After gluing, we will be stapling with this Stanley staple gun. Staple on the back right where they meet. And then you'll add two more staples on the front of the frame. I will be staining everything with the Minwax Dark Walnut stain. If you are ever wondering what products we use, how many, just go ahead and check our description box. Now it's time to make the backing, so grab a piece of white foam board from Dollar Tree, place the frame on top, and just trace on the outside. Do not use scissors on foam board, it will just come out horrible. Use either a razor like this, or some people use the back of a butter knife. To give the foam board some texture and not look so just perfect, I'm going to be painting it with the Waverly white chalk paint. I noticed once this was dry, it gave it more of a wood look. When that is completely dry, you will just run hot glue all around the frame and stick your foam board on top. This is the cute laundry sticker that I found from Dollar Tree. I am absolutely obsessed with the new stickers that Dollar Tree is coming out with. I measured a little bit to make sure it was center. I mostly eyeballed it once I got the sticker off. Then just peel the sticker off and place it on top. I do wish that this sticker was a rub-on transfer instead of an actual sticker. It does leave a little bit of a border around the sticker, but we will be going over top with Mod Podge so that it gives it more of a matte finished look. Just take a craft stick or anything similar just to get all the bubbles out and make sure it lays flat. And like I said before, I went over top with the matte Mod Podge.
We're going to be doing our hanging planter, and I'm really excited for this project. I wanted to keep it simple and easy for you guys to do, but add a little bit of character with some of the distressing and then the stain. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and cut off that threaded end of the plunger, and then we can stain it with that same dark walnut stain. To hang it, we're going to be using these utility hooks from Dollar Tree, and I didn't want to keep them brand new shiny, so we're going to add some distressing. The way I like to do this personally is with a wet sponge. So get a little bit of water handy and then dump it in there, squeeze out the water, and then dip it in your paint. And then if you feel like the paint's drying up a little bit too much, you can always dip it back in the water. And then we're going to just dab that all around the hook using an ink chalk paint from Waverly. And we're going to be doing the same method here with the tin buckets. They look good, like they are galvanized, but they looked a little too new, so I wanted to age them and give them a little bit of distressing. So I haven't done the handle yet, and you can see right there it's quite a bit brighter versus the actual bucket has now been darkened quite a bit. After we add our first base layer of that ink paint, what we can do now is go in with more of that ink paint. Now this, you can still water it down, or if you'd like to do it a little bit more just straight paint, you take your same sponge, dip it in your paint, and then go along the bottom, and you can go along the top or even that little ridge that's kind of at the top of the bucket, and that way we're going to give a little bit more distressing around the top and the bottom, just those edges where you'd see more wear. And then the final part is to add some of this Waverly antique wax to give it some of the brown color and add a little bit more to that rust. I like to usually use a few different colors. It just gives it more dimension and more character. Now this part's totally optional. I thought it was really cute to add this little sign from Dollar Tree with the fresh eggs daily and the chicken. You don't have to add that. You could add like a third bucket in the middle there if you wanted to, or just completely leave that space blank. But I thought it was a cute addition. If you wanted to put this in like your kitchen area, I think it would be perfect. The greenery, this is a pick from IKEA. I believe it was about $5, so you could just add simple greenery like this. Or if you wanted to, what I decided to do is add some lamb's ear and some lavender. And then a quick tip for you guys, maybe you already know this or do this, but if you want to add a little volume and make it easier for you to arrange the plants and use less, you can stick some garbage bags or grocery bags here at the bottom, and then it'll help you arrange it and make it look more full without using as much greenery or flowers. So again, I'm just arranging the lamb's ear and the lavender in here as needed. And I'm curious what you guys think when I was talking about the little sign here in the middle. Would you guys use the sign? Do you like how that looks, or do you prefer it with no sign at all, or would you add a third bucket in the middle? Let me know in the comments what you guys would do. To hang it on the wall, we're going to use these utility hooks that we painted and put them on each end, and then the buckets will hang in the middle, that little middle gap of where the hooks are, and then we'll put one on each side. Again, like I said, if you wanted to remove the sign, you could, and you could add a third bucket in the middle, whichever one you prefer. For this project, we're going to use this glass vase from Dollar Tree and some twine. What we want to do is hot glue one row at the very bottom of the vase, and you want to make sure that that's all the way glued on. Once the first row is glued on and completely dry, what we can do is just start wrapping it around the vase. And we don't really need to glue any of this. What we're doing is just tightly wrapping it around, and we're going to do that all the way up the vase. Once you get to the top of the vase, we want to make sure we glue all of that down. That way the top and the bottom are completely glued and the twine won't come undone. To clean it up a little bit and get rid of some of these little strands, I just use this lighter and went across the whole thing. Obviously it's fire, so be very careful, but it will clean up a lot of that. The next part, we're going to put some masking tape all the way around it. I eyeballed it about 1/3. You could do that, or halfway, really whatever kind of design you want to do. And what we're going to do is take this white Waverly chalk paint and paint the entire bottom part of this. While the paint is still wet, go ahead and pull off the masking tape. As you can see, there's more of the little fuzzy strands that are poking out, so we'll just take our lighter again and singe that and clean it up a little bit. To complete this project, I used some floral foam from Dollar Tree to give it a little bit more height when I put the grass in, and I'm just using some of this grass from Dollar Tree.
To start this project, we will grab 2 tins from Dollar Tree. The writing is really cute for other projects, but for this one I didn't want it on there, so I just grabbed 100% acetone and took off all the lettering. Just dressed it with the Waverly chalk paint in the color ink and mineral. So here I'm taking a sponge and going over the whole entire thing with the mineral chalk paint, and then I will go in later with the ink and go around all the edges. So after the thin layer of the mineral chalk paint, go in with the ink and go around all of the high points. This is it all finished. I've just got this greenery from IKEA. You can use Dollar Tree greenery. This is just what we had on hand. So now we are going to build the actual hanging mechanism for these plants. So I grabbed 2 of these wooden stakes. They're in the yard sale section at Walmart. Make marks at 34 inches and at 17 inches on both of them, and that's where we're going to cut them. What we use to cut all of our wood is this Black & Decker jigsaw, and there's a link in the description for that below. For the part that we'll actually use to hang the plants on is a plunger from Dollar Tree, and we are cutting off just the very bottom where the plunger twists on. And then go ahead and sand all your edges. And then I stained everything using the Minwax Dark Walnut stain. You will need to drill 6 holes in this project, so 2 inches down on each of the sticks and then on the ends of the plunger. To assemble it, we will put some hot glue right where that hole is, and then we will put the nail through and just hot glue the 2 sides together. And then once those are attached, put some hot glue at the end of the plunger and then stick the nail all the way through. If there's a little bit sticking out, just take a hammer and hammer it down. Once you do the same thing for the other side, grab some floral wire from Dollar Tree, and this is how we're going to hang the planter. After cutting them, I spray painted them black just so they weren't that gold color, and then you're going to wrap it over the top and wrap it around both of the handles. And then you would do the exact same thing on the other side. For the first project, we're going to make this faux wooden arch. So we're going to measure out the middle of our foam board, which is 10 inches, and measure that all the way down. The easiest way for me was to grab some tape and put that directly in the middle, so that would be our middle seam. And then for all the edges on the outside, I put 2 pieces of tape because that's how thick I wanted it. I measured it out, and 2 pieces of tape is about 2 inches, and 1, of course, is 1 inch. So put the tape all the way around except for the top. For the top, I'm measuring out where I wanted it to curve. So I wanted it to curve about 8 inches down from the center. And the tape that you see at the top is just the middle line. If you have any wire or anything that curves, it helps kind of drawing the line or getting just a rough sketch. And then you'll measure about 2 inches above that and do the same curve. And then we're adding 2 more curves to the inside, which should only be about 1 inch thick. A lot of this was kind of just a guesstimate and a sketch out. As long as everything's pretty even and the insides are 1 inch and the outsides are 2 inches, it should look fine. Right here, I'm just measuring about 1 inch all the way down just to give it a little bit better structure. And then just trace around all the tape. Then go ahead and take all of the tape off. To get a straight line when cutting, I am using a metal ruler that I got from Dollar Tree, and go ahead and just trace out everything that we did before and cut out all the middle pieces. Now it's time to paint the whole thing using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Mineral. Then to make it a little bit distressed, I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Hazelnut. For the metal pieces on the inside, you'll need 3 trellises from Dollar Tree. For the top, I cut off both of these end pieces. And then I just lined it up where I wanted it, and I made marks just where I should cut it. After cutting it, you just need to hot glue it on the back. And then for the last 2 parts, just make marks where you see I'm marking them, and then we're going to hot glue that on the back as well. For the wreath on the front, I'm using one of these wreath frames from Dollar Tree. And then the greenery that I have here is just a garland from one of my local craft stores. This is probably one of my favorite ways to make wreaths, is just grabbing a wreath form and then putting the garland on it and zip tying it. After zip tying the whole thing, just cut off the excess. And then to attach it, I'm grabbing 2 zip ties and just zip tying onto the 2 parts that meet in the middle.
For this project, we're going to be using 3 of these tin cans. Now you want to make sure you get these small ones, not the full size ones. Usually there's like tuna fish or chicken that come in these ones. And then go ahead and remove the wrapping, and we're going to spray paint these. It can be any dark color really. This is just a dark one that I have. It's charcoal chalk paint from Rust-Oleum, and give it a good coat of spray paint. While we're waiting for the paint to dry on our cans, we can move on to the clothespins. So for standing, I like to take them apart. You don't have to do this, you definitely can leave it together, but sometimes you can miss different areas since it's hard to get in between them when they're together. So I choose to take them apart and then stain them. Now I'm using this dark walnut stain from Minwax, and originally I was going to use a rag, but I felt like it was a little bit difficult to get in some of those crevices, so I switched to a foam brush, painted it on, and then wiped the excess off with the rag. After we have them all stained, we can put them back together. If you're wanting an easier way, I would definitely just leave it together and try and get as much coverage as you can. It can be a little bit of a pain putting them back together. That's just what I choose to do. Now, as you can see here, there's some of the paint missing off the can. I just did a quick fit before this just to make sure everything was looking good. That's why you can seal the paint on the can if you'd like to, but it's really not necessary since the clothespins will be covering all of that up. And then what we can do is just start clipping these on, going all the way around. And then where there's a little bit of the paper from the label, I would put that on the back. And then once you get towards the back, you will need to space them out just a little bit so that it all fits on there correctly. I wanted to give you guys a few different options that you could go with when this is complete. So the first one, obviously just being a little planter. You could put some greenery or flowers in here, and I think it would look really pretty just like that. Another option would be to put some sort of light source in there, whether that's just like a puck light or a candle. Now these are some smaller candles from Dollar Tree. Couldn't find the bigger one, but you could definitely put one of those. I wouldn't do a real candle just because of the wood and stain. Some sort of electric candle I think would work perfectly. Now another option would be putting an actual live plant in there or some herbs. This I think would look really good if you had a pot or a liner to go in there with some soil, and you could put this in your kitchen with some live herbs, and then with this little chalkboard you could put the names on there. I thought that was a really fun, cute idea, or even glue it on the front like this. You could see here would definitely be a great option that you could go with. If you do go with that option, again, you would just want to make sure you have like a liner or a pot to go in there to hold the soil. And then the last option is kind of what I mentioned, like a puck light or another electric source for light would make a really cool light. You could put it out like on your patio furniture or something like that. I think it would look really pretty that way. Let me know though what you guys think in the comments, which option you'd go with if you're doing this. Two packs of stir sticks. These are 5-gallon stir sticks that we got from Walmart for under $1 each. This wire basket from the Dollar Tree. And we also got this bracket from Walmart for under $1. The electrical plug-in cord was from IKEA. I believe this was around $5. And finally this sink plunger from Dollar Tree as well. To get started, we're going to use 3 stir sticks for the long portion that connects to the wall and 2 stir sticks for the shorter portion that comes away from the wall. For the shorter portion, you're going to want to measure it 16 inches and then cut at 8 inches and 16 inches so you have 2 equal parts. Once you've got all your measurements, I found it's easiest to just use the end of a stir stick and line it up for a straight line. And then I use this saw, we got it from the Dollar Tree. It's not the best, but it definitely gets the job done. Once you've got the first piece cut, you can use that as a template for the next 3 pieces, and then just line it up and cut along the straight edge. For the shorter part, I'm going to measure out 8 inches and cut the first section. Once you have the first part cut, you can use that as a template just like we did on the longer part. Just line it up on the rest of the stir stick and then make the cut at the end, and it will be another 8-inch section. Since the saw isn't that great, you're most likely going to have a rough edge when you cut it, so I'll just take a little bit of sandpaper and smooth that out. I forgot to mention, on the second stir stick for the shorter portion, instead of cutting it into 2 equal lengths of 8 inches, you need to cut it at 8 inches. Another part needs to be 7 inches, and then 1 3/4 inches for the end cap. Here are all the pieces cut out. On the right, I've got all the pieces for the top part, the end cap, and the bottom on the left. And on the right, I've got 3 8-inch pieces, 1 7-inch piece. The middle end cap is 1 3/4 inches, and the 3 on the left are the long ones for the bottom. And we're using a Minwax dark walnut stain to go ahead and stain all of these pieces. Now that we've got all the wood stained, we're going to move on to the sink plunger, and you're just going to take a razor blade to cut it in half. That way we can run the electrical cord. If you're not using the electrical cord, then you can completely skip this step and just use a stick-on puck light from Dollar Tree or one of the hanging lights. If you did decide to use the electrical cord, what we need to do next is cut a hole. That way the actual cord has a place to run through there. I found it's easiest to make a few cuts along this edge and then just cut that out. You can use a razor blade, some scissors, and make a pretty good sized hole. That way the electrical cord will be able to slide in easily. So as you can see, we have a hole for the electrical cord. I actually went back and made it a little bit bigger. Just depending on what light you use, you may need to adjust it a little bit. Next is the wire basket that we're going to use for the shade. And they've got these little loops on here where the handle usually attaches, so you can go ahead and rip those off. Now what we need to do is make sure everything's the same color. We use this Rust-Oleum chalk paint in charcoal color, and if you had the electrical cord in black, you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about this right now. Since it's white, we're going to go ahead and paint that, paint the sink plunger, and then also paint the shade just because it is a gloss color and we want to make sure it has that black matte finish. Alright, now we're going to attach the plunger to the shade, and you're going to need some wire cutters for this just to cut a hole. That way the electrical cord can run through the plunger and then through the shade. This is what we were talking about before with the puck light from Dollar Tree. If you're not going to use the electrical cord, then you don't have to worry about cutting the plunger and the shade. All you have to do is glue that in there. They also have another light that's more of a light bulb that you can hang from the top, and either one of these options you don't have to cut the basket. Now we're going to cut the basket. I just tried to eyeball it and cut it in the middle, and you're going to want to cut a few of these links. And then what we're going to do is start bending them back so that we can fit the electrical cord in there. Alright, once you've got your hole cut, go ahead and slide the electrical cord through, and you can use the wire around it to bend it and give it a little more structure. Once you've got it in place and where you want it, we're going to slide the sink plunger around it. So we will be putting the seam in the back of the light, but to make it not as noticeable, just use a very small amount of it. Once you have the plunger in place, go ahead and hot glue it to the bottom of the basket. You will want to use a generous amount just to make sure it holds, and run that along the bottom of the basket and the outer part of the plunger. Now that we have the light done, we can go ahead and start with the wood. We're going to start with two 8-inch pieces and glue them together. Now we want to take this 7-inch piece and align it so there's a gap on both the left and right side. That's going to allow the electrical cord to run through the center. Next, we want to start building the long part that connects to the wall, and we'll just start by gluing this piece. Next, we're going to glue the front piece on, and we're just using hot glue for all of this. You can use E6000 or wood glue if you like. Now, before putting on the other side pieces, you want to make sure to run your electrical cord first. You probably aren't going to be able to fit it through the small gap if you glue the sides on. It just makes it a lot easier this way. Once you have the cord in there, go ahead and glue the other side pieces on. Now that we have all the side pieces complete, the last part is to glue down the end cap. So right here you can see this little gap. That's why we cut the other piece at 7 inches. It left a gap right there and then right here in the back for the cord to run through. Now that we have the sconce complete, the last thing that we need to do is hang it on the wall. Pick the place you want to hang your sconce and screw in your bracket. Now since this is a floating sconce, it should slide right on. And there you have it, a floating farmhouse sconce. For the first project, we're going to use this pot that we got in the garden area and spray paint it white with this semi-gloss spray paint. I would recommend using a high gloss if you can find it. What we want to do is create kind of a glass or ceramic look. Next, I'm going to take this grass from the Dollar Tree and unravel it and pull each of these little stems out. That way we can spread it out in the pot and they're not so bunched together. The stems that you pull out are a little bit smaller and shorter than the ones that go around the outside, so you'll just want to line those up and trim them. I think I ended up using about 6 of these from Dollar Tree. I just used some of this foam from Dollar Tree to put in the bottom and hold the grass. Personally, I thought the outer parts of the grass looked a little bit cheaper and not as good as the stems, so I placed those in the middle. And then once I used all of that, I started placing all of the smaller stems around the outside. The last thing I did was take a little bit of twine and tied it around the base just to hold some of the grass so they weren't falling over the sides. For this project, you're going to need 3 of these candle holders from Dollar Tree, this scented candle, also from Dollar Tree, and we're actually only going to be using the lid for this project. So the candle, you can save that, light it, make the room smell good, whatever you want to do with it. And this box, this little gift box from Dollar Tree, and we're going to use both the top and the bottom for this project. First thing we want to do is go ahead and glue 2 of the candlesticks together. Again, we're just using the hot glue for time purposes for you guys. Use something stronger. E6000 with the hot glue is what a lot of people are saying works well together. And then we're going to go ahead and grab the lid to the gift box for the single candle holder and use that for the base. And then the lid for the actual candle for the top. Go ahead and glue all 3 of those together. For our bigger holder, we're going to use the bottom of the box since it's a little bit thicker. You don't have to remove this sticker completely. I just tried to scrape it away from the edges so that it wasn't sticking out of the base of this candle holder. As you can see there, it covers it up. I just didn't want to have that sticking out, so when you paint it, you could still see that sitting there. It's not really a big deal, just scrape a little bit away. And then for the paint, what we're using is this white Waverly chalk paint. You can grab that at Walmart or online, whatever works easiest for you guys. And then I went through and applied just a couple coats on both of these. Next, we want to take the 2 balls. These are both from Dollar Tree. I got a couple different sizes. I'm just using this charcoal spray paint that we have. Any black spray paint will work just fine. You just want to give it a nice coat so that you aren't seeing all those colors pop through. If there's a gap after we glue all this moss on, the black will just kind of blend in and hide that. And then right here, what I'm doing is just taking this moss from Dollar Tree and hot gluing it all around both balls, and that's going to create our formed topiary that we're going to put on top of the candle holders that we created. Once our paint has dried, we want to go in and add some dimension so that we don't have just a flat white candle holder. I'm using mineral chalk paint and truffle chalk paint, both from Waverly, and I'm going to use a sponge to water down this paint a little bit. I think it looks a lot better than just dabbing the paint on there. Sometimes you get some really harsh lines when you're using just straight paint. That's why I like to do this method. So I'll go through both of these candle holders, the small one and the large one, with mineral all over, and then with the truffle, I'm just gonna kind of go over these high points to give it kind of more of a distressed look now. And I think if you do it this way, you will really like how it turns out. I thought it was awesome.
The 8x10 canvases from Dollar Tree. The easiest way that I have found to get the canvas off is to grab a flathead and just pry up the staples, and then grab some pliers and just pull them out. To paint the frames, I used the white Waverly chalk paint, and I did one coat on all 6 of the frames. Once they were dry, I used the antique wax from Waverly and dry brushed it on all the edges. To give this the chicken wire look, you're going to use 3 of these trash bins from Dollar Tree. You'll start by cutting the top ring off. Once that is done, you'll do the same thing for the bottom. There will be a seam where the basket connects, and that's where you will cut all the way down. Once that is all taken apart, you need to stretch out the wire just a little bit to make it more even. Since all the canvases are 8x10, you will cut just a little bit below 8 and a little bit below 10 for each of the pieces. Cut a few of the pieces, and then you kind of have a line that you can go off of. You can leave it black, but I spray painted all of the trash bins with the Krylon Brilliant Silver spray paint. Once I was finished with that, I dry brushed some of the Waverly chalk paint and the color ink to give it a little bit more old and distressed look. To attach the wire to the canvas, I'm using this Stanley staple gun, and there's a link for that in the description below. I tried to make sure one of the edges was lined up, and then whatever excess we have, we're just going to cut it off. Once you have all 6 of the pieces finished, it's time to hot glue the sides and put them together. I put hot glue in the middle and then down the edges, and then I will be taking that staple gun and going in between all of them. If you want this to last longer, I would use something a little bit stronger like E6000. Then do the same thing for the rest of the pieces. Once those have dried, it's time to glue all of the big pieces together. And I'm just doing the same thing. I'm gluing down the middle and then gluing on the back and then stapling across. For the tins on the front, there are Dollar Tree options, but I just grabbed these 2 for 97 cents at Walmart. I'm going to be doing just a tiny bit of distressing with the Waverly chalk paint and the color ink. So I'm going across with this brush, and then I will take a wet paper towel and wipe most of it off. Once most of it was wiped off, I just kind of dabbed it to give it more of a textured look. Four of the canvases will be holding pictures, so I'm taking that antique wax once again and I'm just dry brushing it all over this clothespin, and then I'm also painting 2 of them in the white Waverly chalk paint. To attach the tins, I'm using just a clear zip tie. Now it's time to add the clothespins. They didn't fit in between the holes, so I cut off just a little bit so that I can put them inside. Then for the greenery, I'm using lamb's ears from Walmart and also just a little bit of white flowers as well. For this lantern, I wanted more of a solid base, so I grabbed one of these just square decor pieces from Dollar Tree. And then here I have the 12-inch dowels that I'm going to cut down to 8 inches and put them in all 4 of the corners. Once all of them are cut, you will put just a little bit of hot glue in the corner and then grab one of the dowels and just stick it in the corner and hold it until it's dry. Then we're going to grab 4 of the 6-inch dowels and measure the gap in between each of the dowels, and that's how long you will cut all of them. Then just add little dots of hot glue and attach it on top. The lengths in between will vary a little bit, so just put the dowel up to the edge and mark where you need to cut it and cut each individual one. Now it's time for the top. You'll grab that 6-inch dowel once again, and I cut them to 5 1/4 inch. And then the easiest way to attach them is to hot glue opposite corners and then touch them at the top and add some hot glue so they have something to lean on. Then add the dowel to the last corner and make sure that they're all even at the top. Then I added a bead on top from Dollar Tree, and it's the largest size. I spray painted everything with the Krylon Gloss Black. For the little hoop at the top, I'm using this floral wire, and I wrapped it around one of the painting containers, and it made a really nice circle. And then I'm just going to be putting it inside, hot gluing where they connect, and then sliding it back inside the bead. And then finally I added a candle that I got from Walmart, and then I'm putting some greenery just around. This is lamb's ear from Michael. It's part of a garland, but you can definitely use the lamb's ear from Walmart, and it's 2 for $2.
To begin our first project, we're going to use this sign from Dollar Tree that we got during the Valentine's season, and you're going to need 3 of these signs total if you have that on hand. Again, we're trying to use stuff that we've just got in our stash. You can use some of the other Dollar Tree signs that are very similar to this. I know I've seen an Easter one. It just doesn't have the actual creases going through them. And what we're doing is putting 2 to 3 coats of this white Waverly chalk paint on it. While we're waiting for the paint to dry, we can go ahead and move on to our little basket and door hanger. What we're going to be doing is spray painting it with this Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color charcoal. I think it gives it a really good matte finish and perfect for our project today. Before we paint it, we can go ahead and break off these extra pieces. We won't be needing that since we're just going to be gluing it to the back of our signs. Next, we can move on to building our crates that are going to go at the bottom of our signs. And I'm just using these craft sticks from Dollar Tree. They come in a pack of 60. And what we want to do to start is just cut at the very end where the curve starts to flatten out. All we want is a straight piece of the craft stick. As you can see, you should just have a little piece that you have cut off on each end. Once you've done that with one stick, we can use that as a template for the rest of them. Go ahead and line it up, and then we just want to cut right at the end there. For the sides of our crate, we're going to do the same thing, just cut it at the end. And then what we're doing is measuring 2 inches. So essentially our crates will be 2 inches thick. And then you should be able to get 2 pieces cut out of one stick. So right here, just measuring it 2, and then I'll go ahead and cut that. Now I'm just using some regular scissors. This is very easy to cut, so don't worry about that. And then again, once you have that piece cut out, just use it as a template. As you can see there, you should get 2 pieces. Once we have our pieces cut, you should have 10 of the longer pieces and 8 of the shorter pieces. And then we can move on to staining. We're going to be using this dark walnut stain. This is easy to find at Walmart or even just ordering online. After we've stained the sticks, we should have 2 for the bottom of the crate, and then 4 for the front and the back, and then 8 total for the sides of the crate. To start assembling it, we just want to grab 4 of the long sticks and line them up as evenly as we can. And then what I like to do is use one of these little tumbling tower blocks to glue to the very end. It's just going to make it a lot more stable and then easier for you to glue on the next set of sticks. And then you'll want to make sure that you're gluing it on both sides here. Again, just try and make sure it's as even as possible with the end of the sticks. Once we have our blocks in place, we can move on to the sides. And what we're going to do here is essentially just glue these smaller sticks onto the tumbling tower block. That's what I meant earlier, is that it gives you a lot more surface space to actually glue these sticks on. After we've glued the first side, we can move on to the next side. Now I have found that this is the easiest way to do it, is to go ahead and glue both sides first and then move on to the back side of the crate. Now that we have both sides done, we can move on to the back, and we're just going to be gluing on another set of these tumbling tower blocks. And again, you'll just want to make sure that you line it up as close to that edge. It'll allow us to then glue the long sticks on for the back of the crate and give us a lot more surface space, like I mentioned before. If you try to do it without it, you're then just trying to glue the sticks together, and it just makes this a lot more difficult. Now we can move on to gluing our last pieces for the back of the crate, and again just glue that right onto the tumbling tower blocks. Now don't get stressed out either if they don't fit perfectly. That's not really a big deal. A lot of times when you see these farmhouse or rustic pieces, they don't look perfect anyway, so don't worry about that. Now that we're almost finished with our crate, we can move on to the bottom, and again I'm just using those blocks to glue on the very end to give it some more support. And we're just going to use 2 pieces here. That way, if you have floral, makeup, pens, markers, or something like that, whatever you decide to put in the bottom, you don't have to worry about it falling through. And again, you should have 10 total, so that's going to be 8 long sticks for the front and the back, and then 2 for the bottom, and then 4 for each side of the crate. For the clothespins, we just want to go ahead and take them apart. It's really easy to do so. Just slide them off of each side of the spring, and then we're going to be using the same stain that we used earlier, the Minwax dark walnut stain. Now the reason I like to take them apart is just so we can get into every little nook and cranny. Same thing with the sticks earlier. If we were to glue that all together before staining, sometimes you miss little spots or the glue will cover up the wood so you can't get stain everywhere, and it just makes it a little bit unfinished. That way, by doing it all before and then gluing it together, just gives it a lot more polished and clean look. Now that our paint's dried on our signs, we can move on to assembling it. Now, sometimes when you peel off those metal hearts, they do rip off a little bit of the sign, so you'll see some of the damage there. It's really not that big of a deal, but if you want to try and hide them, I would recommend placing them where you're going to be putting those wooden crates or some of the other parts of the project, just to hide them a little bit. To connect our signs, I'm just using the same craft sticks that we use for the crate, and I'm just putting one on each side and then one on the middle, and I will do that to connect all three of them. If you don't have these large craft sticks, I know they have kind of the regular popsicle sticks. You could use those as well. You may want to use a few more though, since they are smaller. They probably won't provide as much support. After we've connected all of our signs, we can move on to gluing on the crates. The easiest way I found it was to glue one crate on each side or each corner. That way when I moved on to the middle crate, I had kind of an idea of where it needed to go and I could just eyeball it to get the correct spacing. Now for today's project, I would really recommend using E6000 for most of the gluing. We typically just use the hot glue for time purposes so that we can get these projects done faster for you guys, but for a more permanent hold, I would definitely use something stronger. Next, we can move on to gluing the hooks to the back of our signs. Now, what I decided to do was just run a quick layer of hot glue all over the front of the sign. And then as soon as I did that, I just lined it up and put the signs on top of that. After I let that dry, I flipped it over and then I put a ton of hot glue on the back of this. Again, this is where I would say you're probably a lot better off using E6000 or something stronger. So originally I was just going to use 2 of those Valentine signs, but it looked a little weird and the spacing wasn't very big. So I decided to use 3, and then I also added one of these bigger baskets instead of just going with one of them. So I did use a smaller one and a bigger one, and again I'm just hot gluing them on the board. Next, we'll glue on our clothespins. Now, I didn't do any direct measurements. You guys can definitely do that to make sure they're even. I just eyeballed it. I will let you know though, after I got all of the clothespins and the baskets on, looking at it, the spacing was just kind of weird, so I ended up taking all of them off and respacing them out. The clothespins were too close to each other and the baskets were a little bit high, so I lowered them and then spaced out the clothespins a little bit more, and I just aligned them to the very top of that board. The last part is to add the greenery. Now this board is meant to hold like keys, accessories, to hang notes. Let us know if you guys would change it up a little bit, if you'd add something, subtract from it, or if you like it as is. We're going to use this handle, and it's either a mop or a broom handle, same thing, whichever one you want to use. And I'm just using this simple handsaw. You can get one like this from Dollar Tree, and we're just cutting off those threads so we don't have to worry about that. If there's a little bit left, you can also sand that off, but not really a big deal. Now we can take our handle and these universal tool hooks. I'm going to be using 3 of them, and we're going to spray paint both of these in this gloss black from Krylon. Next, we're going to spray paint 3 of these flowers and garden tins. I'm using a high gloss white from Rust-Oleum, and the reason why I did this is I wanted to look a little bit more like a metal or ceramic than just a flat paint like chalk paint would look. And then what I'm doing is using some ink chalk paint to put a black line on that rim. Now I was going to also paint the flowers and garden black, but but I couldn't really figure out a way that I thought looked good with like marker paint. So if you are wanting to do that, I would suggest then using the chalk paint, because what you can do is after you've painted it with a few coats of chalk paint, you can actually go back and wet sand or wet distress over the lettering, and it should come off and look really nice. The issue with the spray paint is when you're sanding it down, then it makes it rough and you lose that gloss finish, and it just doesn't look really good. So to finish these planters, I'm using some greenery here from IKEA and from Walmart. These IKEA ones are a little bit more expensive, about $5 each, and then the Walmart ones you can get a little bundle for about $1 each. We probably used a couple of those for each container. I would also recommend giving everything that we painted today a nice clear coat to seal the paint. And then we're using 3 of these hooks, 1 on each end and then 1 right in the middle. To hang our planters, I'm using 4 of these plant hangers from Dollar Tree. Each of these hangers comes with 3 chains. Now the outside hangers, you only need 1 chain, so go ahead and take 2 of those off. And then the 2 middle ones only need 2 chains, so go ahead and remove 1 of those chains. And then we're going to use this big hook to go on the pole. And then at the very bottom of these chains, there's a little hook here, and that is meant to clip onto something. Now I went ahead and removed that completely, and I used the very last link. Instead of using this piece you can see right here, just remove that and use the very last link of the chain, and it looks a lot better. I'm going to start with these little puzzle pieces from Dollar Tree, and go ahead and remove all the pieces. We aren't going to need any of them. We do want to make sure that we're sanding off this text on each one so it doesn't show, and then again we're going to go through and stain it with that dark walnut stain. Once we've stained all of our pieces, we can start gluing them together. I just started with one end and started gluing all the way around. Next part is to complete the pole, and I thought it'd be a good idea to just take one of these little balls from Dollar Tree and cut it into a quarter. And so what we want to do is cut it in half to begin with, and then take that half and cut that in half, which will give us a quarter of the ball. And then I think it looks just like a pole that you would find on a lot of drawers nowadays. And next part is to give it a nice coat of this charcoal Rust-Oleum chalk paint. While we're waiting for the paint to dry on our pole, we can create the base of our drawer by just using some of this foam board from Dollar Tree. I just lined it up and traced along the bottom to give us a square to go inside. And then to give us something to lay that square piece on, I'm just gluing some of these little square pieces from Dollar Tree at the very bottom. And then that way we can slide that foam piece down to the very bottom, and then we'll have something to rest on without just going all the way through. The last part of our box is to add that pole, and I'm using another one of these little square pieces to kind of measure the center of where I want this to go, and I'm just going to glue that on. The reason I'm using this piece is, again, just like we'll use the tower blocks from earlier in this video, it gives us more surface area to actually glue this on instead of just trying to glue along those little edges of the plastic piece. And I think if you guys do this, it'll make it a lot easier for you to get that done. To complete our project, we're going to use these flowers that we got from Amazon, and we'll have a link for those in the description below. For our first project, we're going to be using these little wood boxes from Dollar Tree and these smaller bamboo skewers, also from Dollar Tree. And we're actually only going to be using this inner part. So this bigger box, you can save that for another craft. I always love trying to use these items as much as I can for different projects. And for this one, all we need is the smaller box. For this project, you will need 3 of these little boxes, so just make sure to have those available, and then these skewers. So we're going to start by cutting the skewers all around the outside edges. Now, I wish it was as simple as just measuring one of these boxes and cutting. However, they are all a little bit different in size. So what I would recommend doing is lining up the skewers on all of the different sides just to make sure they fit better. Because if you measure it off of one side, the other side might be a little bit short or long. We don't want to have that. Now that we have everything cut, we can move on to staining. We're using this dark walnut stain to do all 3 boxes and the skewers. Now, originally what I wanted to do with these is create like a mini planter with greenery or flowers. I also thought you could use it for like office organization. So if you're doing that, I would recommend staining the entire inside of the box, since you will most likely see that. But since my idea was to have these as mini planters and even hang them on the wall, I'm not going to worry about staining the back of them or the inside, since they'll be covered with greenery or flowers. Once everything's been stained, we can move on to gluing these pieces. Now we're just going to take all of these little wood pieces that we cut and glue them around the outside edges of that square. Once we have those outside pieces glued down, we can measure the inside for our X. Again, this is one of those things where you will want to measure each part individually, because the X that we're making here won't necessarily be the same as the X's on the other side of the box or the other boxes. So even though it's a little bit more tedious, I would recommend doing that just to make it look a little bit cleaner and have those pieces fit better. Once you have all those cut to size, you can go ahead and stain those again with the dark walnut stain, and then we'll go ahead with gluing those on. Once you've completed the X on the front, you can simply do the same thing on both the other sides. Again, just measuring those to make sure that they fit properly. And then you can do all 3 of those steps with the other 3 planters if you choose to do that many. And then this greenery is some that we got from Walmart. I believe it's $1, $1.50 for one pick, and there's quite a bit that comes with it. And then I'm just pulling these individual stems off to fit into each box. Originally, I was going to hang these on the wall as little mini planters, but I decided to just put it on the table. I think it looked really pretty as table decor, but if you see here, you could put a nail in the wall and then just hook it on the back. Let me know in the comments, guys, would you use it as table decor on the wall as kind of a floating planter, or as maybe like office organization? For this project, we're going to use this shower caddy from Dollar Tree and these 5-gallon stir sticks from Walmart. What I'm doing is just measuring it the entire width of the shower caddy, and we're going to mark it there and cut it so that we can make some wood shelves. There'll be 2 pieces of wood that will lay on the shelf like this. And then what we're going to do with the white shower caddy is go ahead and spray in this antique pewter from Rust-Oleum. We'll have the link for that in the description below. To cut it, we used to use these little hand saws that you get from the Dollar Tree. However, it takes a lot longer, and we found that it just doesn't make an even cut. It ends up cutting sideways. So we ended up getting this jigsaw, and it's very inexpensive. We'll have a link for it in the description below, but I would highly suggest getting one of these. It'll make your life a lot easier. While we're waiting for the paint to dry on the shower caddy, we can go ahead and start painting these bottles. And these are just little milk bottles that we got from Dollar Tree. We're using chalk paint. This is from Waverly in the color white. Next, we can move on to staining the wood. We use this dark walnut from Minwax and put a nice coat of stain on all of these pieces. That way they're gonna look a little bit more rustic and farmhouse once we put them on the shower caddy. For the distressing, we're going to use this green scrub pad from Dollar Tree and get it wet. That way we can use some of this wet distressing method. As you can see, that's coming off very nicely. And I feel like the scrub pad gives a little bit more control and easier to distress rather than using just a wet rag. Once the paint has dried on the shower caddy, we can go ahead and put our wood on for the shelves. And all we used is some hot glue to glue these on. I found it easiest to just glue it from the back here. Put a few dabs of glue on the ends and then in the middle, and then just hold the wood down. You'll notice that one of these sticks has a little bit of a curve on the end of it from when we cut it. So what I did is I placed that one on the back on each shelf. That way it was a little bit less noticeable. The last part of this project is to fill the milk bottles with greenery or flowers. This is some lavender from Dollar Tree. It's pretty nice, but we prefer this from Walmart. As you can see, this big bundle was only $3 from Walmart. I think it looks a lot better than a Dollar Tree one, but you can use whichever one you prefer. We ended up using 3 of the lavender pieces and then a little bit of the greenery to fill it up. And you'll want to just make sure to cut it to size so it's not sticking out so much. Once you've filled the milk bottles with the lavender, the last part is to place them in the shower caddy.
We will grab one of these Dollar Tree hula hoops and go ahead and take off the whole outer casing and then undo the middle part and take out all the beads inside. Once you've taken the beads out, just put some hot glue on that part and put it back together just so that it doesn't come undone. I spray painted the whole thing with 2 coats of this Krylon Gloss White spray paint. For the greenery that's going to go on the outside, I'm using this really cute eucalyptus pick from Walmart. I highly recommend getting all greenery and some flowers from Walmart instead. Usually it's around the same price, but it looks a lot better than Dollar Tree. And then I attached everything using Dollar Tree zip ties. You can use hot glue, but it does tend to be pretty messy, and this works just fine. Once you've cut them all off, just slightly bend it so it follows the curvature of the hula hoop. To attach it, we will be using those zip ties, so grab one of them and just go around the base of the eucalyptus And then when you go down the whole hula hoop, you will overlap them, and then you can put the zip tie more in the center. Once it's nice and snug, you'll just want to cut off the excess. And then you would just keep doing this process for the whole hula hoop. So the next one, you do need to overlap all of them just so that you don't see the zip tie, but you can place the zip ties pretty much wherever you want. If you're ever wondering what products we use, we have a list of all the items in the description. This is how much just one of the bundles gets you on this hula hoop. I used 3 bundles and then just one from a 4th. You can also add flowers. You can paint this gold or black and just do the eucalyptus a third or even half of the way. You have tons of options when you're making this. This decor piece I've been trying to figure out a way to dupe for a while. I have seen a lot of other people use cake pans from Dollar Tree, but I decided to use this lime green bucket. I'm going to be spray painting it with this metallic silver spray paint. To get the front piece, just trace out the whole bucket onto foam board. Then make a line somewhat in the middle. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just how far up you want the flowers to go. It will line up on the front like this. You can cut it a little bit smaller to go more on the inside of the bucket, but I didn't like how that looked. This is what it'll look like after a few coats of that spray paint. To distress it, I went in with that ink chalk paint that we used before, and I am dry brushing it on, and then I'm taking a wet paper towel to just move all the product all over so it's not so harsh. You'll use this method around the whole entire bucket, and then to give it less of a smeared look, with that same paper towel I started dotting or splotching onto the bucket just to make it have a little bit more texture. Once we finish that bucket with the black paint, you will do the same thing to that front piece of the foam board. Use the same method so that they look very similar. To add just a little bit more rust look, I'm going in with the truffle chalk paint, also from Waverly. I did the same method, just dry brushing it on and then taking that wet paper towel and just dotting it all over. And then don't forget to work on that front piece as well. When those are finished and dry, we are going to hot glue it onto the bucket. Just put hot glue on the curved portion and put it directly on the bucket. I'm using a little bit of floral foam so that I can put it in the base to fill up just some space, but also to hold the plants in place. This plant is from Walmart. I wanted more of a draping plant and I couldn't find it anywhere at Dollar Tree. The rest of the plants that I'm using are all just succulents or air plants from Dollar Tree. Let me know in the comments below where your favorite place to buy greenery is. For this project, you will need one windmill from Dollar Tree. And we are going to spray paint it with the antique pewter Rust-Oleum spray paint. Use pliers to pry up just one of the sides and you can get the chain off, and then bend the welcome sign just back and forth and it'll come off. Then for the base, you will need 12 of the tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, and you will glue them together like you see here. And then glue all those pieces together as well. If there's a little bit of hot glue sticking out, just grab a flathead screwdriver or a razor and just go over the top and it should come off. This is what it looks like after the Rust-Oleum spray paint, and we are going to go in with antique wax from Waverly and Waverly chalk paint and the color ink to distress it. The sponges that I always use are actually bath sponges from Dollar Tree, and I just rip them apart. They seem to work really well for this type of stuff. I went around all the edges with the antique wax, and then after that I went in with the color ink and distressed it a little bit more. Once the Jenga blocks are done being spray painted, we are going to distress them just like we did with the windmill. On the insides where we are going to hot glue, I would recommend wiping off the excess wax so that the hot glue will stick. But you would take the windmill and you will glue it to one of the sides, and then you will take the other stack of Jenga blocks and hot glue it on top.
To begin, we're going to be using 3 of these wood stakes from Walmart. So if you have leftovers, feel free to use that. If you're using a new one, what you're going to need to do is measure out 9.5 inches. So what we want to do is take one of those stakes and we want 2 pieces that are 9.5 inches. So go ahead and mark that and cut those. Now, like I said, if you have these pieces, you know how much I like to use these wood stakes. I think they look really good on these projects, and they're only about $1.80 each. So if you have some extras from previous projects, make sure to use that up, but you can always start with a fresh stake. To cut our wood pieces, I'm going to be using this Black & Decker jigsaw. It's really easy to use on these small wood pieces, so go ahead and line it up, make sure that it is flush with the wood, and pull that trigger all the way down. Once we have our 2 9.5 inches cut, I'm going to take one of those pieces and I'm going to mark it right in the middle. And that's just for a little bit later so that we know where to line up our other wood pieces. Once we have that first piece marked in the middle, we can grab our second piece, and this one we actually need to make 1 inch smaller. So the first thing that we're gonna do here is you want to cut off 1 inch on the end. I didn't actually show this in the video, so cut 1 inch off the end, and then you want to take the 8.5 inches that are left and you want to mark it right where I did at 4 1/4. So you should have 2 equal pieces that are 4 1/4 and then 1 small piece that is 1 inch. So you can see those 2 4 1/4 pieces will fit on each side of our full 9.5 inch long, and then you should have this 1 inch square piece. So the wood itself is about 1 inches thick, and that's why you should have this 1 by 1 inch square. And then we're going to use that as a template. If you have some extra wood, or if you're just using a new stake, you want to mark 3 more spots. So we want to have a total of 4 of those 1 inch squares. Once those pieces are cut, I'm just going to show you an example of how this is going to all come together for the base. We won't actually put it together right now, we'll save that for later. I just wanted to give you an idea. For the wood pieces that are going to go vertical and create the height of our lantern, we want to use a full piece of this wood. So they measure about 34 inches long before it starts tapering down to that point. And to utilize as much of the wood as possible and save ourselves money, we're going to split that in half. So you want to measure it and mark it at 17 inches and then again at 34 inches. That way we can get 2 pieces of wood out of this. If you don't have any leftover wood, you will need about 3 of these stakes. One of them will be used for creating the base, and then 2 of them will be used for the vertical wood pieces. After we've cut all those pieces, we're going to move on to staining, and I'm using this early American stain from Minwax to go ahead and go over all the pieces. After they're cut, you should have 4 of those long wood pieces. You should have 1 of those 9.5 inch pieces, 2 of those 4 1/4 pieces, and then 4 of these small 1 inch squares. And the reason I like to stain first before gluing is sometimes the glue, if you have it on a piece and you try to stain it, it won't stain where the glue is. So I always try to do the staining first. Okay, once we have all the pieces cut and stained, we can move on to assembling the base. So you want to take that longer piece and flip it upside down, whichever side you want to be the top side, just make sure you flip it upside down and glue on 1 of those 1 inch squares just like that. And then we're going to do that again on the other side. Now I would highly recommend that if you're doing this project to use a stronger glue, maybe E6000, wood glue, and you can even use some staples for different parts of this project, but it will make it a lot sturdier. It works really well for what we're doing time purposes with the hot glue since it dries so fast. We want to make sure that we can get these videos out for you guys, but if you're recreating it, I would definitely use something stronger. Once we've completed that longer piece, we can move on to our shorter pieces. Now remember, these are the ones that are going to intersect with that long piece. So you only want to glue a 1 inch square on each piece. So do the same thing, flip that upside down, grab one of the squares and then glue it on there. When you're gluing this, if you're using hot glue, I like to use quite a bit on there and then just put a little bit where that crease is like I did there, just a quick line, and that will add quite a bit of strength to it. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other piece. Once you let the hot glue or your glue dry, we can move on to connecting it with the longer wood piece. So this is why we made that little mark earlier on that piece, so we can kind of get an idea of where center is. So you just want to line it up where you made that line earlier and glue it down. So I like to put glue on the end right here and then just connect it with that longer wood piece. And then you want to hold it there, give it time to glue because it's going to be a little bit unstable. What we'll do here in a second is we'll put a little bit of a wood piece underneath to make sure that we're giving that added strength. To add that support, I'm just using a craft stick from Dollar Tree. I went ahead and cut it down to make it smaller, and then I stained it with the early American stain so that it would all match. Now I went ahead and put quite a bit of hot glue on here, and if you can get into those little creases, that's perfect. And then go ahead and press firmly on that craft stick, give it a minute to dry, and that should actually add a lot of strength so that it's not wobbly or weak. For the part that's going to hold the vase and then that top cap part, I wanted to give you a couple options in case you couldn't find one. First would be this craft box and then this gift box. So this one you'll have to cut the string off of it, but either option will work, and I'm just using the lid. Now if you want to save some money, you could just use one of these, use the lid and then cut the base to match that, so you're saving some money and you'd only have to buy one of these. And then what you want to do is, I'm using a matte black color from Krylon, and we're going to go ahead and spray paint both of those. And then one of them we're going to use for this base to hold the vase, and then the other one will be used for that top cap. And then I'm just putting a hefty amount of hot glue here on the wood base, and then go ahead and line it up. I just kind of eyeballed it to center and then line it up and press firmly on that. I wanted to add a little bit more to that top part and give it a handle, so I'm using these book rings, and I'm gonna go ahead and spray paint this black as well, and then we'll glue that on the top. So this next part is a little bit tricky. What you want to do is you want to apply just a little bit of hot glue, not a ton, and you don't want to glue these straight down. If you glue them straight down, then it's going to be hard to move them around, but if you put just enough glue on there and glue them at an angle, you want to try and get it as close to an angle as it's going to be in the end where you connect the top piece. But if you glue it at an angle, you'll actually be able to move these around a little bit even after the glue's dried, so that we can align that top cap piece and connect all of these. So just kind of do what I'm doing here. You want to make sure that you're holding them in place long enough to let that glue dry enough to where it will hold these up at a vertical angle. Now this next part took me a couple attempts to make sure I got it right. What you want to do is you want to put quite a bit of hot glue or whatever glue you're using right on the ends of these wood pieces, and then I actually let a little bit of it drip down the side as well, since when we put this top piece on, it's going to be gluing it on the top of the wood pieces and then on the side. And then what you want to do is just push these together so that they fit right inside of that. And then once they're inside of it, you can kind of move them around and pull them out if you need to a little bit, but you can make some little adjustments to make sure it lines up correctly and that it has a solid hold. The last part to finish up our lantern is to add in our glass vase. So there's two different sizes of these vases, a smaller and a larger one. We're using the smaller one from Dollar Tree, and then a 6-inch candle from Michael's. Now another thing that you could do is some fairy lights. I think especially if you're going for like a Christmas theme lantern, fairy lights would look really pretty in this. So either option, fairy lights or candles, I think would look fantastic. And here's 3 different options that I think would work perfect. This one is a little bit more of a boho modern look. And then this one we decorated for Christmas. I thought it looked amazing with the pine. And then this look here, a farmhouse. So you can do a ton of different options with this lantern. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time we upload a new video.